AI is demonic. Be me. Late night. Bored. Decide to play around with AI image generators. Start inputting prompts for human faces, celebrities, and even some abstract concepts. Images come out impressive at first glance, but the more you look, the more off they seem. Eyes lack real depth, smiles don't reach the eyes, skin texture's too smooth or bizarrely inconsistent. Realize that the AI is following a set of algorithms and data patterns to simulate humanity. It's assembling pieces based on countless references, but doesn't truly understand what makes a face feel genuinely human. Reminds me of lore about demonic entities trying to impersonate humans. They observe and mimic behaviors, appearances, speech patterns, but there's always something not quite right, like they're following a checklist of human traits without grasping the essence behind them. Both AI and demons use procedural methods to recreate humanity, but end up exposing their artificiality through subtle flaws. Think about how both rely on imitation without comprehension. AI stitches together pixels and patterns, demons replicate flesh and mannerisms. In both cases, the facade falls apart upon closer inspection. The imperfections aren't just mistakes, but signs that something fundamentally non-human is attempting to wear a human mask. Start to feel uneasy, like messing with these AI creations is inviting that same hollow imitation into our reality. Wonder if by teaching machines to mimic us, we're blurring the lines between the authentic and the artificial. Or worse, opening doors for other entities to slip through the cracks of our simulated creations. Can't shake the feeling that this procedural fakeness hints at deeper truths about perception and reality. End up closing the program, but the lingering sense of being surrounded by imperfect copies remains. Old UFO story from childhood. Hello, X. Not going to try green texting because I suck at it. This story happened to me when I was around 7 to 8 years old. I live in a small town, barely 7,000 people, surrounded by a forest. My parents were a bit strict about my sleep schedule, so I had to go to bed around 9 p.m. at max. My bed was a bunk bed and had a little window barely above it on the wall. If I looked out, I could see the forest. It was summer, so it wasn't dark yet. Before my parents sent me to bed, we talked about something. I don't remember what. I looked out the window and saw a massive sphere above the forest, broken apart, its pieces falling down. I told my parents this and they watched it too. It was probably one really big sphere that broke in half. The two halves were falling separately, smaller pieces all around it. It was falling really slowly for some reason. I legit thought it was a meteor and I'm going to die. My parents were just staring at it in similar fashion. Since it was sunset, the whole thing was illuminated in a pinkish color. They wished me good night and went out of my room. I stayed at the small window and watched it, waiting for it to finally crash. But it never did. Next day, there were no traces of it anywhere. No one talked about it, no newspaper mentioned it, nothing. I tried to draw a picture of it in paint, but I can't draw really well. It turned out horribly. I have memories of a UFO crashing in my backyard, but I also remember being kidnapped by some military organization and forced to assassinate political enemies of the United States, so I don't think it was a real UFO. The only alien I know of didn't need a spaceship. They had a spacesuit that could generate a plasma field around it and make it look like anything, or nothing at all. This alien lived inside the skull of a Korean pearl diver who claimed she was over 10,000 years old. According to the alien, when they enter someone's brain, they scan it and add it to their think tank. The woman claimed she was tired of being alive after witnessing so much human history. My job was to witness her death, more assassin stuff, and I had to watch the ritual the Illuminati performed where they ate her flesh, the next stage of the parasitic alien's life cycle. I'm still really pissed off about it since the aliens act like one of those Zen monks from a kung fu movie that never gives a straight answer. I often question whether the lore I was instructed to interpret was even real. Actually, most of the time I just assumed that it was all some kind of sick stage play that the satanic occultists put on when they sacrifice people. The alien shit just seems so contrived. It really doesn't help that they just expect you to get it, eventually, and never offer any help. I hate that I can't believe in the alien stuff, because that means I believe that I witnessed a bunch of cannibal cult rituals, and this has left me uncaring towards humanity. Like, these are the people you elect to lead you. Y'all suck. There is nothing redeemable or spiritual about it, just a bunch of sickos who are equally clueless about everything. But hey, they have enough money and influence to cook and eat people, so why not? The rich literally eat children, and you're all so plugged into their control program, you'll never hold them accountable. Well, that devolved from a UFO crashing in your backyard real quick. Hey, X, it's been over 10 years, but I used to have a secret clearance in the US Army. Let me tell you some interesting stuffs. ISIS camps in the US are real. I helped an alphabet guy do an interview with a member. Just a typical white guy. We tortured him and waterboarded him, gave up the location. 2 days later, whole camp was lit up and lots of people killed. AI was controlling a ton of stuff back in 2014. It was already pretty advanced. Last I heard, it's being used in the stock market to guide our economy. Weird cannibal tribes were slaughtered in Afghanistan near and in the Kush Mountains. Sounds like you should talk to the last guy. Lots of medical testing and genetic modification done in the black sites. Never got solid details. Most dudes just got sick thinking about it. Government is still using Snowden's epic shelter program as a base for most things. Any questions, just ask. I don't even know if I'm going to include this one because it's just stupid. There's something in the woods. I swear to God, there's some otherworldly shit in the woods in here in the northeast. I don't know what it is, but occasionally there's just this feeling that something is off, and all my hunting buddies agree. Do you guys relate? There is something out there. No. Cougars are still found all over America. I don't know why law enforcement refuses to acknowledge their existence. Maybe they're worried about mass panic? I live in New Jersey and I know of 3 sightings here despite how urban it is. The deforestation just means that the woods that are left have a higher concentration. Good news is, I don't think they share territory with bobcats, so if you're in bobcat territory, I wouldn't worry too much. I'd suggest you watch YouTube clips of them to learn all their calls. I found out at the zoo that they make a short chirp, that to an untrained ear sounds kinda like a bird. The bone chiller is that I recognized it from previous hikes. They're out there, and you will not see them unless they want you to. Aside from that, yes, the New England woods are evil in an X way. Especially New Jersey. If there is a devil, it surely lives here. I'll say. Okay, I have one that happened to me quite a while ago. Be me, 21. It's late August and my senior year of college is starting. Enrolled in a hiking and camping class as an easy way to fill some gen ed credit stuff. Class is all obnoxious freshman guys. Regret.jpg. 2 junior girls join for second class. Class breaks to groups of 3 and they ask me into their group. One has a boyfriend, and the other is a 6 out of 10 who's giving me some serious DTF vibes, and generally seems chill. End up hiking and hanging outside of class. Make plans to camp nearby one weekend. I pick an easy local trail and camping area near a small lake. Show off my ability to cook over fires and enjoy the scenery. Even dip in the water. It's still reasonably warm in early September. Lie down and progress from snuggling to sex. Twice. She needs to pee and I go out with her and stand watch. Hear rustling slightly, point flashlight at it. She screams. I don't see anything and assure her it was an animal. We go back to the tent and I show her me, carefully zipping the flap closed and turning both poles into the tent. We snuggle and end up having sex again. Of course. Her hips are hurting since we were in round 3, so we switch to me behind her, and while I'm looking down at her and then I look up again at the tent wall, I swear I see a light in the woods. Not at us, but moving across. I figure it's a night hiker, and I'm also not going to stop railing a girl to investigate a light in the woods. Finish, and it's the furthest thing from my mind. Lay awake and cuddle her. She's asleep quick. I doze off, but wake up quickly. I realize I desperately have to piss now. The main door is facing the lake, and she's basically in front of it. There's a second door that has a clump of cedars directly by it, but I sneak out that way. Door? I thought you were in a tent. Stand by the trees and look at the moon and stars reflecting over the lake while I piss. I'm bare ass and it's starting to cool down due to the time of year and no cloud cover. I turn and walk over to the opposite side of the tent, passing the door facing the lake, suddenly thinking of the noise and light earlier. In the moonlight where the woods are more open, I see movement when I stop. Can literally see a human shape, crawling, sort of angled through the low, brushy shit. Can't even tell which end is which or clothing color, just a shape, slow crawling. Debate saying something or shining the light. Honestly, feeling borderline panic as I consider all the implications. See a head pick up. Realize it's a person or humanoid crawling backwards, now staring at me. My skin is crawling. Realize I'm literally naked in the woods staring down unknown assailants. The crawler still hasn't moved since picking its head up. Jump to the tent and grab the zipper. It sticks. See that it's 4 inches up and tangled in the nylon. Realize this is the zipper I had made a show of sealing inside. Nearly screamed. Run to the other side and jump on. Have hatchet and knife out of bag and don't sleep. Packed out early. I sometimes wonder what and why someone was out there. I also wonder if me staring someone down bare-assed scared them. I can only hope. Can you tell us what campground this is or what the name of the lake is? Or just the general area? Central Vermont, near Killington or Rutland areas. Unsolved Mysteries General. Post unsolved mysteries, offer theories, brainstorm. Mounds in central Missouri, connected by tunnels found by Grail seeker Charles Teague. Supposedly an ancient Hall of Records known only to Native Americans. During the Revolutionary War, Colonel George Morgan mapped out the area between the Mississippi River and the Ohio Valley. Somehow made enough money to retire comfortably. Archaeology enthusiast discovers a grid map in Morgan's coat of arms, on which was a lizard. In the Mark Twain National Forest, a rock formation was found resembling a lizard. After finding the Hall of Records, a giant skull with esoteric symbols related to Saturn carved into the walls was noted. There was an entrance that the exploration team was too afraid to open, somehow sensing that it was watched. Upon returning to the car, they found it surrounded by armed men. If the team didn't have a Cherokee with them, Teague probably would be dead or missing. A humanoid reptilian was also found carved among several other carvings of African animals. Sometime after Teague's expedition, the Army Corps of Engineers created a new road and blocked off access to the cave. After, Teague contacted the Army Corps of Engineers, and whoever answered Teague wanted him to bring all of his family and friends up to the wall. Teague didn't bite. There's a bearded man inside with the ram's head, like a king. It has to do with a lamb and a king, and it would make him a shepherd king. The owl is the sign of wisdom. Theories thrown around that it's King David and the Ark of the Covenant is buried here. This all started when Teague heard a Coast to Coast AM episode where a shaman recounts his experience being blindly led to the Hall of Records. Of course it's Coast to Coast AM. This did not happen personally to me. For all I know, it could be totally made up. But it was so crazy, it just might be real. Back in mid-2011, I was working a temporary job as a data collector at White Sands Missile Range in New Mexico. I am a former military service member, and my qualifications landed me the job. Anyway, my job was fairly simple. I would document technical data on new communications equipment being field tested by the Army's Operational Test Command, OTC. One of the technicians who worked with me was also a field technician for DirecTV or Dish. We would work long hours alongside the OTC staff and became good friends. Working long hours in the middle of nowhere, storytelling became a great way to kill time. On one particular occasion, he shared a very strange story. He recounted working with the satellite provider out of Deming, New Mexico, a small town west of El Paso, Texas. One day, a call came in about a service installation within his area of responsibility. He was assigned a partner, and they both drove out to the property to install the service. The property was a ranch house on the outskirts of the Luna County line, a good driving distance from Deming, New Mexico. When they arrived at the property, they called the owner to inform her that they were at the entrance to her gate. A few minutes later, the owner, an older woman in her 70s or 80s, drove up to open the gate for them. They introduced themselves and proceeded to follow her back to her home. Along the way, he said, he noticed a lot of strange sculptures lining the dirt road. The sculptures were made of sheet metal, aluminum, and wood. He said they looked like huge wind chimes, windmills, and other odd forms. What struck him was the size and complexity. Upon arriving at the house, they got to work. Everything seemed normal about the property aside from the sculptures. After an hour or two of working out in the hot New Mexican heat, he and his partner took a break. The old woman came outside and gave them some water, which was very friendly. The old woman was very excited about her new service. She told the men her husband passed away a few years back and she could use the entertainment since she lived by herself. After installing the dish on the roof, the text asked permission to enter the house to set up the receiver and run the wires. The old woman was a bit hesitant, but agreed to let them in the house. Once inside the home, my friend said both of them became very startled. Inside the home were dozens of concrete alien statues. Yes, aliens. Greys to be exact. They were lifelike, had limbs, fingers, eyes, and mouths. He could see wrinkles and scars, too precise to be molds or copies. They were everywhere, in the hallway, in the kitchen. No two were the same. They were different sizes, some taller than others. There was no rhyme or reason to them. Some were staring at the wall, some were in the way, just strange. He remembered thinking, who the hell put these statues here? Surely the old woman couldn't have done that. Nevertheless, the men got to work and decided to keep their thoughts to themselves. A short time later, the woman broke the ice by talking about the concrete statues. She stated that her husband was an engineer with the U.S. Air Force in Roswell. In mid-1947, an alien craft crashed at a ranch there. She said her husband not only worked at the alien crash site, but had proof. He said that the woman shared her late husband's personal photo album. It contained typical photos you would expect to see, wedding pictures, family portraits, but it turned strange when they saw old pictures of alien remains and of the wreckage. Almost evidence-like, with measurements. CSI type stuff. He could hardly believe it. He surely thought this lady was insane or clearly pranking them. The woman went on to explain that government officials and engineers were able to decipher messages and symbols etched into the spaceship. Her husband became obsessed with them. She said her husband, along with the others, were able to decipher that the origins of humanity were at the edge of the moon, whatever that meant. She went on to say that was the reason behind the space race with the Soviet Union, that NASA's missions were some sort of cover-up. The real reason Americans went to the moon was to validate the evidence they found in Roswell. She explained that after her husband retired, he was convinced that the origins of humanity were not at the edge of the moon, but at the edge of Luna County. Luna means moon in Spanish. Her husband and she bought a few acres of land at the edge of the county line, and he continued to search for answers and build those strange sculptures until his death. The old woman said that after her husband passed, she became depressed and very ill, could not continue her husband's work. It was at that time that the Greys started manifesting. At first, it was one, then two, sometimes they would go weeks without appearing. But over the months and eventually years, they started manifesting in the dozens. She used the term manifest, meaning they would just materialize in and out of space and time. She said they were nocturnal beings and hated the daylight. During the night, they would manifest and keep her company, using telepathy to communicate with her. She said they cured her illness and depression and became very fond of her. She would spend long hours at night talking about humanity, our imperfections, and our destructive nature. She went on to explain that because they were nocturnal, during the day they would sleep or hibernate by turning to stone, as a way to protect their bodies from the sunlight. That is why she needed satellite service, because during the day, she had nobody to keep her company, and she would get bored. My friend remembered experiencing strange feelings of being watched by the statues, and experiencing the so-called funhouse effect, becoming disorientated at times. They completed the work and showed the old woman her new satellite service. She was elated. She thanked them for their help, and just like that, it was all over. The drive back to Deming was quiet. Who would believe them? Did they see what they thought they did? Was it an elaborate hoax by an old woman? They ended up sharing the story with those who were crazy enough to listen to it. When he shared this story with me, I was dumbfounded. Such a crazy story. Again, not my experience, simply a story that a friend shared with me. What's the most obscure conspiracy you know about? The calendar was changed by the Roman Empire in 800 when Charlemagne was crowned for obscure reasons. What's the most obscure conspiracy you know about? Kind of ties into the empty world theory, highly overreported population numbers. Might also tie into the missing 411. Hundreds of thousands of people going missing all over the world every year. Okay, so, world has 8 billion people on it. That's a huge number. Even if only 1% of everyone who dies every single year were buried in cemeteries, then cemeteries would take over the landscape, and there would be no more land to build any buildings. Think about how long we've been burying the dead. Why are there not an insane amount of cemeteries choking out the landscape of the entire world? Even if the human race has been cremating 99% of everyone who dies since the beginning of time, we still have too few cemeteries for the 1% who are buried. Even if you ignore all of human history and only focus on recent history with larger population numbers, the math still doesn't add up. Calculate the number of people who die each year on Earth, even just a rough estimate. Where do all those bodies go? How are we not drowning in an ocean of dead bodies? It's a mystery. Random side theory. Most restaurant food, especially fast food, is very low quality and mixed with other random ingredients. Oftentimes, you can't even tell what kind of meat it is or where it came from. Some meat is even different cuts glued together with meat glue. Look it up. It's been around a long time. We have 8 billion people on Earth. How are we feeding all those people with meat? How can we make enough meat fast enough to feed them all? What if the vast majority of the meat we are eating is just recycled human meat that's either ground up into mystery taco beef slop or glued together with meat glue into semi-recognizable cuts of meat that just look like standard animal cuts? What if we have been eating human flesh our entire lives and we don't even know it? This is just a theory for fun and is totally fake. Shadow people. 15-year-old me and friends walking away from school. It's about 6 p.m. and it's getting dark. We pass by an old house in which an old female lives alone. My friend throws a big-ass rock at the metal gate. Loud bang. We run towards a small bridge crossing train rails. We look back. 10 to 15 shadow people standing in the middle of the street looking at us. Everybody quit laughing and froze. Walk away asking ourselves, what the fuck was that? Never took the same route again. Talk to a friend on the phone about his failing engagement. Go to bed late, have to get up early for work. Fall asleep at around 2 a.m. on my right side. Wake up, eyes wide open, staring at the window on my left side. Don't see anything at first. Then my eyes adjust to the darkness. Malnourished face with black spots for eyes staring at me, or what felt like staring. Notice it has a beard and sparse hairs on its head. Creepy breathing, sounds like a Dementor from Harry Potter. Can't move face, can't close eyes, and can't scream. I try screaming, but the face moves ever so slightly towards me, only 2 feet away from me. I finally snap out of it and yelp. It probably sounded like a friend. Turn to my right, and then I get the courage to look back. Nothing there. I pull out my phone, am able to read it, so I know it's not a dream, and start flashing my light everywhere. Nothing. Fall the fuck back asleep because my ass is too tired to be scared. Secret underground bases Below us, there is a whole secret world, not aliens or gnomes. It's the New World Order military. This is the biggest organization the world has ever seen, or not see, in this case. This bases, there are thousands worldwide, go miles deep, down into the base rock of Earth. Millions of people live there. Some bases are like complete cities. They have quarters, offices, training grounds, reactors for the energy supply, food production, animals, factories, laboratories, etc. The network of underground bases can exist independent from the surface world and survive a nuclear apocalypse. The bases are connected with tunnels. Many have bullet train railways, and many important surface places, like government buildings and corporate headquarters, are connected to the tunnel network. This hidden army is the biggest of the world, and the NWO is de facto the world government. They are in control of the weapons of mass destruction and have advanced technology that is not known to the public on the surface. They can clone people, heal all sicknesses, use telepathy for advanced mind control, and they are even able to manipulate time and space. They have anti-gravity aircrafts and war machines that can teleport to any place on Earth. They also have large energy weapons that can cause earthquakes, tsunamis, and control the weather on Earth. This hidden organization has the real power. All the politics on the surface are directed by them. They built this hidden world since over 100 years, preparing for the takeover when they finally show themselves and create the new world order on the surface, with a central world government. The world is now getting close to this moment. Okay, buddy. Have you ever found yourself in the middle of a conspiracy in real life? I'm talking suspicious things at work, secret underground tunnels, government psyops, or just the underworld in your city. Anything you weren't supposed to see. In Iraq, early war on terror. Bored all day, guarding stuff and jerking off. Occupying a compound to host some kind of MP unit or something. Abandoned outbuilding was used for storage. Has suspiciously new tile floors despite being essentially a concrete shed, rumored to be the sex slave's house or something creepy/funny. Okay. One day, Private Dumbfuck knocks over some heavy equipment and breaks a tile. While cleaning up, he notices that the tile was laying on top of something metal. Thinking it was some oil baron's stash, he and his buddies start breaking and pulling apart the tiles, and sure enough, there's a manhole cover. And the first broken tile just revealed the edge. Now the boys are grinning ear to ear, thinking of nothing but treasure. They agree to keep it a secret as they crack the lid. It's a very deep hole. From here, the story is essentially one man goes down via rope and is never seen again. They apparently heard something screaming down the hole that wasn't their friend. 3 dudes involved agreed to just keep it a secret and cover the broken tiles with a rug and heavy boxes. This is a really shitty version of the real post. Yeah. I used to work 3-month stretches in and around Alaska for the fishing industry. I was the help, staying ashore and working in the kitchen. 12-hour days making slop to feed to unpleasant people. On several occasions, I'd see kids come through the mess hall. Always just one at a time, and never that I'd recognized as having seen before. There were no families, should have been no kids. They were quiet, ate, and were shuffled out. No idea where they came from, stayed, or went to. I only ever saw them in the mess. It was obvious, from the first time, that this wasn't something to ask about. One last crazy bonus one for you. Crazy is when you don't make sense and are irrational, and insanity is closely linked to evil and stupidity. It seems the world is imploding, and everyone has gone mad, and this site exemplifies it, being the most influential and being full of cooks. Is that a slur? Just look at this thread saying the universe ends if the Simpsons stop. There's some people actually believing this. It's bonkers. And this is all corrupt evil. Now I know why Jesus says to hate the world. What's psychiatrists gonna do? Put everyone on meds? They are crazy too a lot of the time. And the inmates run the asylum. Obviously. Alright friends, that's all I have for you today. I thought it would be nice to just sort of relax, read some stories, So I wanted something less editing heavy and more of me recording because I enjoy the recording part. I love the schizo threads on 4chan. I love when someone actually posts something actually scary. So hopefully I do more of these. Let me know. Do you guys want to hear more of these? Do you guys like the creepy schizo 4chan threads? I don't know. Am I a creepy schizo? Probably. Alright. Thanks for watching.